And the other thing, I think it kind of is an interesting segue into your Kaepernick story, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically what happened is the NFL has come out and they decided that they're going to put a kibosh on whether or not you can kneel during the anthem. You can go stay in the back of the bus.
Jesus,
and let the rest of us have our stand for the anthem, and then you can all come out from the back and just, as long as we don't need this kerfluffle about, black people being unjustly killed by our system. Y'all need to just kind of cool that off because we have racist fans that are offended by this, and we're losing our bottom line. Now, this is, again, just a big heap of similarities and differences, right? Because you've got a situation where each of these people has a private employer. Each of those employers does have the right to deal with the situation in the way that they see fit. And what I'm finding that's interesting is that there are a lot of people that are trying to confuse this with free speech and make this equivocable, right? So they're basically saying if you are mad at the NFL for fining the players, but then you're okay with Roseanne Barr being fired and you don't want Samantha Bee to be fired, you are completely inconsistent, because if you're for free speech, then all these people should keep their jobs and there shouldn't be any fines. And it's like, no, you're confusing the issue here. There's nothing to do with free speech. These are private employers. This has to do with whether or not you want to support a private employer with your wallet that is pro-racism, that is also pro-racism, depending on Kaepernick's. The NFL is behaving in a pro-racist way. I think was it ABC that had Roseanne? I don't want to name the wrong network, but they chose anti-racism. And then you had Bee, and I don't know what network she's on, but she made a sexist slur, right? And with Kaepernick, the issue isn't about free speech. It's about, and somebody called me out and they were just like, what are you, dense? This isn't about pro-racism. This is about they were losing money because, people weren't buying tickets. And so that's all this was about. And I said, I don't really care why they're pro-racism. Right?
Just what it is.
If I'm going to say I'm pro-racism because it's lucrative, I'm still pro-racism, right? I mean, I don't care what their ideology is. When you're supporting racists and you're siding with racists and you are making decisions based on what racists want you to do, and then you want to say, I'm not pro-racist, that's ridiculous. I don't care if you personally do, or I don't care if you personally don't give a crap what color somebody is. If you are willing to do what racists want you to do and support racists, that's pro-racism. Telling me that, well, it's not really because I'm personally racist. Like, if there weren't racists paying me, then I wouldn't do this thing to support racist perspectives. Well, but you are supporting racist perspectives. You're on the side of racism. You're on the side of wrong here. And yes, it could be because of your bottom line, but the fact is you're still choosing racism. And these are not patriots. These are racists holding flags in front of their swastikas and their, KKK hoods. They're out there pretending that they're offended about a flag or an anthem, but really what this is all about. Flag, this is all about, they don't want a person of color, a black person, to
muddy their
protest. I don't want to see your protest. I want you to go in the back where you can't be seen, can't be heard, and you can go and protest there.
Well, and this idea that kneeling for the anthem is somehow an affront to the military,
right,
is particularly that's particularly, I guess, distasteful for me, because that Cap's protest was never about the military. It absolutely had nothing at all to do with the military. That was something that some racists injected into this to divert attention from the fact that the protest was specifically about black people being killed in what amounts to extrajudicial executions by police. It had nothing at all to do with the military. And I really resent people using the military as props for whatever bullshit ideology they're promoting. And it's usually some form of nationalism, which I think is very distasteful. But, I mean, you know, I spent 26 years in the Army. I am not at all offended by people who kneel for the national anthem. In fact, I think that for people that, you know, maybe you already have your season tickets to your favorite NFL team, or you don't want to boycott the NFL over this or whatever, I would encourage people that if you find yourself at an NFL game, when they start the national anthem, since the players can't kneel, you kneel. Kneel in support of the players who can't do that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, if I was a sports ball fan, I would definitely do that, but...
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, though. It's like the people that are critical of Kaepernick are basically ignoring the explanation for what this is about. They don't ever talk about... They never open their mouths and talk about Black Lives Matter. And I'm pretty sure if they did, they would say that they don't believe it anyway. Right? This is the crowd who is like, oh, black people aren't being killed. They're just pulling up, you know, just showing the videos of black people getting killed. And it's like, well, let's not look at the statistics about how much harsher our justice system is all across the board to people who are non-white that go before a judge, that stand there and talk to a cop. I mean, there's been stuff that has been happening to people that are black that's been in the news that I'm just like, when does this ever happen, right? Like, never. If you're white, this never happens. And I heard a really funny quip on... I think it was on Wait, Don't Tell Me, the NPR show.
I love that.
And somebody said something about Starbucks now is going to have a new policy where you can come in and use the bathroom and you don't have to buy anything. They're just basically telling the stores, let people go and use the bathroom. They do not have to make a purchase. And the guy that's on the show goes, actually, that's always been their policy, as long as you're white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yep, it's true.
Yep. Oh, before I forget, the fallacy name that you were looking for here is called... The fallacy of relative privation.
Thank you. Thank you. Because damn near every sentence coming out of y'all's mouths while you were talking, I was thinking that, what is that damn fallacy? Because you're saying it again and again with everything you've said about the Kaepernick, Kaepernick, thank you.
Colin Kaepernick.
Kaepernick, them saying, anybody saying that, oh, well, what about black-on-black crime and all these other things that are just like, whoa, back it up. That's got nothing to do with anything. You're missing the point, and you will never see the point because you don't want to see the point.
That's the thing. They don't want to because it's been explained. It's been clearly explained. There's been interviews, pages and pages and, you know, voluminous interviews with explaining the purpose of this, and if you still don't get it, you don't want to get it. You haven't looked at it, you don't care.
Yeah, and I don't know about listeners or either of you two here on the show with me, but I've got friends who could stand to be a little more educated, friends and relatives, and I do speak up. When they give me pushback, the thing that seems to make them think the most is that when you look at every single way you can measure a parameter about how a demographic is treated, and in every single one of those studies, you see a difference in how they're treated.
Yeah.
Something is systemically wrong.
Right.
You can't ignore the data, period.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think at the level of the police departments, it becomes, what's the word I'm looking for, like more weaponized, right? Because, I mean, these are people with the right to use lethal force. But I also think that what we see expressed in the police departments is basically the overall social prejudice that exists anyway. It's just that these people are in a position of using lethal force so that it turns out to be a more weaponized version of racism than what you're going to see just, you know, from a sales clerk, for example. I mean, the sales clerk, I think we even had one recently where the two guys were, you know, like accused of shoplifting or something. You know, like they're black and they were just like, we're being tailed all around this, and they didn't do anything wrong, of course. But when that happens, nobody gets killed, right? There's no bloodshed. No. When a clerk, you know, is racist enough to think, well, they're black, so they're going to steal something, and so you just don't have the deadly result. But I don't think that I mean, I have seen some things that talk about like potentially higher levels of racism in, you know, authoritarian positions. And it's not that I would say that that can't be possible or that maybe there isn't some good research out there to indicate that that's the case. But I think that overall, there's probably a pretty good level of racism in the society that, you know, this is just a manifestation at a level where people are working with guns. And that's why it becomes like far more dangerous, it's more dangerous racism when you have decisions to make that are life and death.
And these are people who are supposed to be protecting. And I have friends whose spouses are police officers, and I see all of the Blue Lives Matter stuff, and we know that they risk their lives every day when they go to work. We get it. But so do lots of other jobs. And your average fireman, although there was that recent article or thing about a white EMT who saw that there was a black person who had been killed or injured on the road in front of him, and tweeted that he intentionally did not do anything because the person was black. But so there is a way you can have an impact without having a gun. But I think by and large, the impact they can have. And I've also read lots of statistics about other jobs that are far more likely, the participants are far more likely to die than being a cop. And one of them is a Quickie Mart teller. Those people die at a higher rate than cops do.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably an unusual day for a cop when he even has to pull a service weapon.
Right.
I mean, I think it's just the potential for it. I do respect the fact, of anybody coming forward to say we'll work for the community in order to preserve safety and, whatever. And when that's not working correctly, I think the community has a obligation to address the issue and to make sure that it gets put back on track.
Yeah.
So I think, as a community or as communities, because these are local level employees, we have a responsibility to make sure that our employees are following our policies and make sure that our policies are, include some sort of training and awareness about racism and about, like I have to go through that training in my job and I'm just sitting at a desk all day, but I have to go through sensitivity training and so I think that, it's fair for us to say, well, if we have this problem within our police departments, we need to raise some awareness at the police departments. We need to make sure that people understand that this is not tolerated, that if you have these attitudes, you had better check them at the door when you come into work.
Well, that's actually a really good point, because one of the things that I've seen so often when these cases come up where, a minority has been killed and it turns out that they weren't doing anything wrong, like the guy that recently got shot in his grandmother's backyard. He was holding a cell phone, and over and over again we hear that, well, the police didn't violate any procedures. And for me, that screams big red flag here, because if your procedures allow you to shoot someone unarmed standing in a relative's backyard, there's something seriously fucked up about your procedures.
Right. And that's a community issue, right? I mean, we are the ones that are ultimately responsible for those procedures. And so when that happens, I'm with you. That's the point where everybody has to get on the phone to the mayor and say, what in the heck is going on with the chief of police and the police department here? Because if this is our policy, so don't you think something's wrong with this, Mr. Mayor? Right?
And that's the thing. It's like, this is the kind of systemic issue that, you can prosecute individuals for these extrajudicial executions till the cows come home. But it doesn't really address the root cause of the problem. And the root cause is that there is this systemic, issue within certain police departments that allows this kind of behavior. That it's not even that it allows it, it's that it almost is designed to create this kind of response. It's this exaggerated fear response.
Yeah, let's say it's fostered.
And we have to stop seeing each other as the enemy. Yeah. When the police show up and they automatically see someone, especially if that person's skin is brown, as the enemy, that's a problem. Yeah. And that's what falling back on, they were following procedure. That doesn't address the problem. No. Maybe the procedure is the problem.
Yeah, you might need to step back and look at that a little more closely. Something that an area in which my awareness has been raised recently. Somebody I follow on Facebook was talking about being stalked or somehow being treated in a very bad way, and this person is trans, and people were saying, well, call the cops, and he's like, no, you can't. And I thought, wow, I live in such a different world. For me, calling a cop means I'm going to get some help.
Yeah, absolutely,
Wow, this person is being threatened and can't get help from the people who are supposed to help. And I know
I can tell you,
yeah, go on.
I was going to say, I actually had a stalker situation many years ago.
Boy, were they freaking stupid. What were they looking to get chopped?
Well,
I know, I'm just being silly.
Yeah, there were like a number of issues here. So this person was an erotomanic stalker, which is a very dangerous and difficult kind of situation.
Yeah.
And the stalker was a woman, which if your stalker is a woman,
they're not going to take you seriously.
Trust me, when you go to the police, they don't take it seriously.
Right.
Even when you start describing behavior that, would raise the hackles on anyone, and you have recordings of voicemail messages and conversations where this person has said some bizarre things, it was really kind of creepy and very scary.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything. And the thing is, you go in and people say, "Oh, get a restraining order," as if that's actually going to do anything for you.
Right. Yeah.
A restraining order is a piece of paper.
Yeah, it doesn't. Right.
And when if your stalker shows up at your door to do you bodily harm, that piece of paper isn't going to help you. And I say that when they show up at your door to do you bodily harm, because when you go to get the restraining order, you have to tell the person to go, which means giving up your home address. So if they didn't already have that, then they'll have it after you get a restraining order.
Yeah, and wouldn't that mean you'd also have to put like any place you would frequent, like your work place and all of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're telling this person, here's where you can find me during the day, here's where I reside at night. Here,
And I'm thinking stalkers generally aren't big rule followers anyway.
No, they're not.
If you tell them don't do that, they're going to, whatever.
Well, that's the thing. If you're dealing with a reasonable person and you tell them, "Hey, I don't want to have anything to do with you. Stay away from me." Most people who are reasonable say, "Okay, hey, sorry I bothered you," and they back off. But stalkers, by definition, are not reasonable people. So, when you tell them, "Hey, don't go here, here, and here," they take that as "Oh, please don't throw me in that briar patch."
Yeah.
And that's where they
It's a personal challenge.
Yeah.
No, it's like, I'm making light here, but it's not a light situation. These are people that do not see other people like people, right? They do not respect and regard other human agency. And that's the root cause of every problem with people, is when you don't regard the other person's agency and autonomy and allow them to make the decisions that they want to make in their life, even if that means I don't want to include you in my life. Just respect it. It's all it takes. All you have to do at that point is leave them alone.
Yep.
This segues into something else I had on the GV page, which was, I guess it was a U.S. border guard on the Canada border, I think it was, where he saw a couple women speaking Spanish and approached them and asked for identification. They put it on, they videotaped it on their phones, and they asked why they were being asked for papers, and he was just like, "I heard you speaking Spanish," and the woman's got it on tape, and she's like, "Are you racially profiling me?" And the guy is like, no, I heard you speaking Spanish, and people don't, and I'm like, I don't think this person knows what racial profiling is, right? This is the whole thing with, I saw that you were illiterate, and so I wanted to make sure you had the right to vote, because you can't be illiterate and vote, right? This is that thing again. It's like he's correlating the language to a race, and then his red flag goes up because that's a race that we don't trust, and they're probably illegals. And it's like, this is what Hispanic people in this country have to deal with right now. And the children, right? Those kids get stripped away at the border. Like, if you're not aware of that, you need to look it up, because it's horrendous what's happening right now. These are people that come to the U.S. Some of them have come here legally seeking asylum. And their children are being taken to places where, I saw some photos yesterday, and I was just like, this is not acceptable. This is not like an acceptable way to house children.
It's inhuman. I don't know how you find somebody who's willing to do that job every day. I can't fathom taking someone's child from them and then doing
and then warehousing them.
Yeah.
How do you justify that to yourself? I mean, just at a very personal level, not to mention the societal wrong of it. I can't imagine the trauma for the families.
It's beyond real that we're doing this to people in the United States.
It boggles my mind. Go on, Jen.
The idea that there are children in this country who spend their night essentially in a dog cage. It's like, excuse me, this is the United States. We don't warehouse children in dog cages away from their parents. I mean, that is such a nightmare scenario. I can't even imagine what I would do if someone tried to do that to my child. Separated me from my child and put my child somewhere where I didn't know where he was, who was taking care of him, what his emotional state was or anything. I cannot even imagine. I mean, I would be homicidal if someone did that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't even. My heart just breaks.
I mean, this reminds me of something that I was thinking about actually shortly after 9/11 took place. Mm-hmm. And everybody was kind of in a panic about what do we do? And, something that we had taken for granted for years was suddenly under attack. This idea that you could show up, 10 minutes prior to gate time to catch a flight. And I used to do this all the time, show up at the very last minute because I could breeze through security and just walk onto the plane. And basically they were closing the door behind me because that's how I got to work, Mm-hmm. I was flying to the West Coast frequently. Anyway, so suddenly that was no longer the situation and people were kind of reeling. And then I thought to myself, if you really wanted to really disrupt this country, you would basically destroy people's confidence in, fire, police, first responders, because then people wouldn't call the police and, people wouldn't trust if they got pulled over or something like that. People wouldn't trust that that's an actual police officer, and it wouldn't take more than a few incidents to basically erode public trust in that institution. Mm-hmm. And recently I started thinking about this and I was thinking, that's exactly what's happened with the Black community. And the fact that they're actually still participating in society I think it's a testament to the character of the individuals here that they still are invested in this country.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And the same thing with Hispanic people, because if you're in fear of, if you get pulled over for a routine traffic stop, that the cop is going to suddenly go all ice on you and demand to see your papers and stuff. I mean, what do you do?
Well, I think what you're describing here is like an erosion of the social contract, right? So
yes,
there's a social
absolutely.
contract in place, and it's only valid insofar as both sides are meeting their obligations. And this is going to sound really, really ridiculous, but I was watching The Jungle Book last night. I'd never seen the movie, and it was on, and I was like, oh, let me check it out. And there was one little, the animals all had these little sayings and, creeds or whatever, and the wolves said, the strength of the wolf is in the pack, and the strength of the pack is the wolf. And that's the social contract in a nutshell, right? So you've got the individuals that make up the society, and that creates the society. And then you've got the society, the collective, that protects the individual. And that is your basic social contract. And everybody is there because they agree to be there. And everybody can leave when they want to leave. And what happens is, as the society starts to break down, as the group starts to less and less protect some individuals, like what Jen is describing, what you're describing is those individuals become less loyal to the group, understandably, because they're not getting their share. As the society starts to squeeze you out little by little, deny you the same opportunities, deny you the same protections, if you're not getting protected and you're not being treated as part of the pack, what is your incentive to contribute as the wolf? You don't have any incentive, right? Your incentive starts to get less and less. And what you're saying is, when you reach a point where the pack is just like, you can die and I don't care, why should that person participate anymore? Why should they be loyal to the establishment? And the thing that's really painful is that in our own society, even though technically you can leave, if you're in poverty, you know, or you're not doing well, or you're striving to just like put food on your table, make your rent, you're living paycheck to paycheck, or maybe even not doing that well, going into debt, how the hell are you going to get out of here and go like live in Ireland, or go live in the UK, or I'm going to go, you know, move to Canada? These are not people with that kind of lucrative capacity for opportunity. It's ridiculous to say that they can actually leave. So they're stuck in a situation where they're being treated worse and worse. And then when they throw a rock, they're as bad as they're bad as the KKK, right? They're as violent and nasty as those people that marched in Charlottesville with sidearms and torches and shouted down, you know, Jews and blacks on the streets. And, you know, you're just as bad as that. And it's like, no, because those people marching with torches and sidearms, they don't have any reason to be pissed at the society. The society is totally embracing them. You know, they're in a situation where they have the opportunities. They're not being, you know, forced into situations that are untenable and told they can't leave. I mean, it's ridiculous to say that those are equivalencies, even when it turns violent, because frankly, when your society turns against you and you haven't done anything wrong, that's actually when violence is recommended, right? I mean, if we look at our own Declaration of Independence, when you read the Declaration of Independence, it's almost like it was written yesterday sometimes. If you go and read that, I encourage people to go read that document. It holds no legal weight, but what it is an understanding that when the government starts oppressing you to a particular point where it is just untenable any longer, you can no longer shoulder that burden. Because people are so long-suffering, I think it has a line that says that, right? Because people, I forget how it words it, but it's like people are inclined to basically put up with abuse, that they will put up with abuse. And so at the point that you actually say, I'm going to throw a rock, you're pretty badly abused. And if you're denied due process, what mechanism do you have, right? How do you go about adjusting this in a legal, peaceful way when you are not allowed the same due process as everybody else in your society?
People don't even support your desire to kneel.
Yeah, basically people are saying, your society's response is, we don't want to see you telling us about, we don't want you even raising awareness about your issue.
That's pretty ugly.